familiar sound. We've actually played most of the stuff that I just did there, and you've heard it 1,000 times, I'm sure. But the difference is I was keeping time for myself on the bass notes while playing the melody notes. In other words, I was finger picking. Now, this video is not intended to be a method for finger picking, but I'm going to show you enough to get you started in blues. And it's a pretty basic approach, and it concentrates, as everything else we've done, on rhythm. All right? Here's how you do it. I'm using a flat pick, and I talked back at the beginning about the different options for picking, thumb picks, thumb and fingers. You can do finger picking, obviously, with a bare thumb and the finger. I like the flat pick because, first of all, I'm used to it. I use it whenever I play the guitar. And secondly, it gives me a nice, thick sound on the bass, right? Lots of definition. You can really hear the notes. If I play with my thumb like this, it's kind of quiet. Playing with the pick, you really hear the note pop out, right? Now, what I'm playing here is a technique that's called, by some people, hybrid picking. That means combination of the pick and fingers. Now, I'm holding the pick just the way everybody normally holds a pick, right? Thumb and first finger. And I'm using it to play all downstrokes on the low E string. And then, with my bare second and third fingers, I'm playing notes on the higher strings. And there's no law about which finger you use on which string. You just sort of work it out, all right? So here's how you get started. First thing we're going to do is play a shuffle on that low E, like this. Real slow. Okay? Now, use your third finger. I'm holding an E chord, but I'm not actually going to play the notes of the chord. I'm just going to use the high E string and go like this. Got that? Now, the tendency is going to be that you're going to want to stop picking when you pluck that note. But the whole trick is to keep picking even while you're playing the high note. Now on every beat. All right. Now I'm going to play in sync with the bass note. That's probably the easiest in a way because they're both doing the same thing. Now, here's a trick. I'm playing opposite the bass. Real slow. Now I hit the downbeat, then the middle part of the triplet is with the finger, but the shuffle is still being played with the pick. Now, all the stuff you hear in different blues licks is combinations of being on the beat or off the beat, like this. That's the basic technique, and it really doesn't get any more complicated than that in the right hand. The only difference is that you start moving across the neck and playing different notes in your left hand, and you have to stay coordinated. So for instance, here's a way to get started with your melodies, is take the blues scale and play the blues scale using a steady bass note. The note stays the same, the melody changes, and you notice I'm using second and third fingers, and I'm not being too particular about which one I use, as long as I can just hit the note. All right? Now check this out. I'm using phrases that we learned earlier and adding them together with the finger picking idea to make a complete self-accompanied rhythm pattern. Now let's play some of that Muddy Waters blues. This is a style of playing that Muddy Waters didn't invent, but he certainly popularized. He was recorded back in, I think it was 1942, if I'm not mistaken, by Alan Lomax for the Library of Congress. He was playing in his cabin on Stovall's plantation, and he played a couple of blues songs that he later recorded for Chess Records, and they used this similar style of playing, self-accompanied. He learned it from people like Son House and Robert Johnson himself. It's a long tradition. So we're going to take the ideas that I showed you about one-note bass and then finger-picking the melody, and we're going to apply it to a 12-bar progression. See what it sounds like. Here's a taste of it, and then I'll show you what we're doing. All right? Here we go. Keep going and going, right? Now, what I did there on the E chord is same thing I showed you, one-note bass playing different phrases. The tricky part here, as I said, is to keep the time steady while playing different rhythms with the left hand, right? So those little turns. All right, now check out the fingering on that. This is very important. Notice where the phrase starts, the turn starts on the beat. And the fast notes, the da-da-da-da, is actually right on time. You know, it's not just a random set of notes. They da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. There's a definite rhythm to it. So as you learn a new phrase, you want to break it down and know where it fits in the beat. And that means you're going very slowly and working your way up. So, for instance, key of E. Now, in this case, when I went to this phrase, I went ahead and let the bass note go to a triplet as well. So I'm actually playing three notes together, all in the same rhythm, bass note and the fingers. Then go back to the shuffle. You don't have to be too religious about the bass figure. It should be steady. It should be a shuffle most of the time. But if you change a beat here or there without changing the rhythm, then you're okay. Because Muddy did it, I do it, everybody does it. It's okay. They'll be none the wiser. Just keep that beat going. All right? So we got our E chord with a couple of licks. Now the A chord. We've already learned that melody. We played it several times in the context of the chord and independently as well. Now we're using the open A string. Right? And you see the only thing that's changed is the placement of the pick on the 5th string instead of the 6th string. Back to E. On the B chord again, I'm using Old Reliable. I got my B7 shape, and I'm just going to keep hammering that bass note. Nothing fancy about it. Right? And then back to A. Now, the only thing I'm missing to make this a full Muddy Waters blues is the Muddy Waters turnaround. Here's the Muddy Waters turnaround. These two notes right here. Second finger on the 5th string of the 2nd fret, first finger, 3rd string, 1st fret. Move it right up. Now, you can flat pick the first part of it, but then you need to use the picking fingers to pick the last one. Another variation, it's a nice one. There you're picking the pick on the 5th string, the 2nd finger is plucking the 3rd string, and the 3rd finger is plucking the open E string. Right. Now in context, it'll sound like this. Starts on the 2nd beat, as all these turnarounds do, right? So 5 chord, 4 chord, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And I'm doing an extra little note in the run up to the 5 chord. Start with the F sharp, open, and then play your B7 chord. And with that turnaround, with that run up to the 5 chord, and with all the little finger picking I'm showing you, you get some really authentic, down-home Muddy Waters blues.